Hi everyone, it's David here again, speaking to you from the virtual Benedetti sessions as featured in my lovely flat in Glasgow. In this lesson, we are going to focus on two skills that you can apply to all of your playing. I will show you where these skills apply in some of the pieces that we're looking at, but this is going to be more general and it pertains to two things, shifting and vibrato. Two big topics to try and cover in a short space of time. Before we get started with this video, just a reminder to make sure that you're going through our weekly warm-up videos that we are posting out. I'm sorry that it's more of my voice and my face and me being a bit silly, but it is a good routine to get into. So if you haven't already done that, click the link below. I wanted to start out again by just picking up on something I mentioned in the previous video, that being thinking of your practice in terms of a cake. And I thought I might not have explained that very well. So I've done a little drawing. As you can see, I'm not very much of an artist, but I hope this explains more of what I meant last time. So imagine this is your whole practice time. This could be 15 minutes, this could be an hour, this could be 3 hours, 5 hours. This stays the same. You split it up in terms of percentages of your time. Now here is the start. So let's assume that it's going to be an hour. We're going to warm up for the first 10 or so minutes. We've then got scales, arpeggios. If you've got a study or exercises that you've been asked to do by your teacher, then that's a good chance to get to do some of that. Then we've got almost a little mini brain break in here with some listening. So that can be listening to the pieces that you are playing or that you are working on. It could also just be listening for fun and sort of background learning about different cellists or different pieces or whatever. Then we've got two chunks of time, decent chunks of time for pieces that you're working on. Of course, it can be more than two pieces, but I've just given you two as an example here. And then recommended that the second to last thing that you do as part of this routine is something familiar, just so that you're not spending all your time on something really, really hard and something that's really new. It's nice to go back and recap something that you already know. And then the final chunk of your time, like I said in the previous video, is always going to be rest and always a bit of a break. Hopefully that's a helpful structure for you. It's been really helpful for me over the past little while just to break up my practice into manageable chunks. We're going to get stuck right in and think about shifting. And the first thing to say about it is just to make sure that you are learning shifting movements as things that are big before they are small. Some of the shifts we have to practice are quite small, but actually we can do shifts like that. So one of the nice activities I do is just dropping right down on the string. So you can pop your thumb on the top, which is obviously ideal preparation for thumb position-y type shifts or shifting into thumb position. Grab onto your bridge at the bottom, give it a little tap, and then come back into first position as if you're answering an old style telephone. You're trying to pick it up. So we can do that a few times, just a long drop, right down, and then answer the phone. And of course this movement is going to be a shift. So we can begin to make the movement smaller, and this is how we eventually shift from, say, first to fourth. And I'll go into a little bit more detail just on a couple of these smaller shifts. With all of our shifts, there's a few important things to remember. Yes, to practice big movements before small, but also take your time. Nothing is a rush. I have noted down a little phrase, glide, not grab. We should feel like we're gliding on the string, that we've got all the time in the world. We're not trying to grab the note or Snapchat it. Glide on the string. Breathe. Please remember to breathe while you are playing. Otherwise that won't end up very well for you. But breathe as well when you are shifting. If you're sliding up there, just remember to give yourself that breath. It might feel a little bit exaggerated to begin with, but it'll eventually become quite natural. Also, another thing I try to do, particularly with bigger shifts, is to encourage my head in the opposite direction. Sometimes we tend to do shifts like this and we go right down with them. And sometimes we do want to do a shift like that to really get on the note. But I think it's really nice to feel like our body is opening out, so that as you're traveling down the instrument, getting higher, we're actually going slightly back with our head. And that just keeps everything nice and open and can help our sound to be more open as well. For these smaller shifts, I would like us to do a bit of target practice, which is a term that I learned from a book that's got some great shifting ideas in it for moving from different positions, and I'll show you that in our live sectional. Target practice is basically landing on a note with one finger, any finger, and then landing on it again with another finger. To help us with these smaller shifts, we've got a little song that's kind of borrowed from Looney Tunes a little bit, when you've got Tweety Pie and Sylvester, if any of you know those characters. And the song, we've kind of changed the melody a little bit to make it work for our shift, but it goes a little bit like, I thought I saw a pussycat a-creeping up on me. I saw a pussycat as happy as can be. Change the words, change the melody. No copyright infringement, it's the dream. As a first step, we'll learn it all in first position. We'll just do this by ear. So it's going to be open and then 4. And we'll do it on the D string to begin with. It goes. And then up the steps of the G major scale. Once you've got that pattern in your head, you can start swapping between your 4th finger and other fingers. This does have a point, by the way, stick with me. So if we begin like this, we can then swap for our 1st finger. Now you'll notice I moved my whole arm there. My thumb slides on the imaginary ribbon, and my whole arm moves as one. What we don't want to see is anyone trying to shift, and you sort of leave your thumb behind a little bit, and then it has to catch up. Or the opposite, where you're sort of doing weird creepy crawly things. We don't want that, we want a whole arm shift. So this tune is handy for that because there's an open string in between the notes. Then 1st finger, then back to 4, then 1st finger. And you're trying to land on the same target every time. You don't even need to do that tune. If you don't want to, you can just practice open 4, open something else. Alright, and you've got to commit to your shift. No sliding. To adjust it if you get it slightly wrong. You can do it with 4 and 1 or 4 and 2, which will be a smaller shift. Or 4 and 3, which is an even smaller shift. Even try it with the harmonic on the next string down, like this. Which means sliding into 4th position and then opening out so that you can have that finger on your harmonic. That's one short exercise that you can do to practice moving from one position to another. The ultimate version of that is open 4, open 3, open 2, open 1. And then you can work your way back and see if you can keep the target the whole way as you move your hand a semitone or a half step each time. There it goes. And you can try that on all your strings and see the difference that it makes. Another shift you can practice is going from 1st position to 4th position. And this is a nice one because we've got some notes that we can play in 1st and find them in the same sound, but in a different place in 4th position. So 4th position is when you slide your thumb right down to the neck until it stops and your 1st finger rests almost in line, roughly in line, depending on your cello and how it's set up. And your 1st finger will be in line with your thumb. I wrote a very short piece called Echo Chamber, the idea being that you would have an echo, so 1st time in 1st position, the next time in 4th position. So for a little bit of practice of that, you could do open, 1, 2, 1, open. And then you could find the same note, 1 string down in 4th position with 1, 3, 4, 3, 1. I'll play that for you now. Shift. Then you can do the same on the D string. Use your open string to shift. And so on and so forth. Why am I going on so much about this? Well, you will notice that we have in our sectionals begun to cover some interesting fingerings for some of the sections. I'm particularly thinking of the opening of the talus / Vaughan Williams, where we'll need to get from first position into third position so that we can play our... That's a nice position to play it in rather than playing... It's not so nice with the open A. So practice those routines, go through them, and notice how your shifting improves. On to vibrato. I'm very aware that vibrato can be really hard to learn and that lots of teachers teach it in different ways. I'm just going to share the way that I teach it. So please do ask your teacher how they would go about teaching you vibrato if you're at the stage where you are beginning to play with that. Vibrato should never be an on and an off switch. Vibrato is about adding shade into your colour, into the sound that you want to make. It is an embellishment of the sound. It's something we add on to the sound. The worst thing it can be is always on, all the time, on every single note, because then it will just get boring and it'll become the same. So we want to really vary our vibrato, and in order to vary it, we need to be in control of it. I'm going to take you through what I refer to as a string polishing routine. And it starts off, you get your hand in your sleeve, which is why I'm wearing a sweater on what is quite a hot day in Glasgow. And you're just going to practice as if you're polishing the string. And believe it or not, this whole arm movement is the beginning of vibrato. You can also try this polishing on your arm itself. So you imagine that this is your fingerboard and you use your left hand and just slide up and down. Do you notice the difference it makes if you grip ever so slightly? You can't really move at all on your arm now. The skin of your arm won't let you do that. You've got to be free. It's really important that we're free when starting to think about vibrato. Once we've done our polishing with our hand in our sleeve, we can do all four fingers in between the D and the G string. Just slide them in there, and then all four fingers and thumb are going to slide almost from like half to fourth position, just until your hand stops back and forth. The next step is just your second finger and your thumb going all the way. Then I want you to imagine that your thumb almost gets stuck on a little bit of jam or a little bit of jelly for our North American friends. And your second finger is going to keep polishing on the top of the string. So if I show you what that would look like, if we are moving like this, and then eventually your thumb is going to get stuck on jam, but your second finger is going to keep polishing on the top. You see that? The step after that is for your second finger also to get stuck on jam, but for your arm still to be polishing. I'll show you that this way. So you have the same movement, second finger, the thumb gets stuck on the jam, the second finger gets stuck on the jam, but your arm is still polishing. And there we have what looks like a really nice round vibrato. Try this without your bow first of all. Keep going through the routine. If at any point you feel tight or you feel stiff, rest, shake it out, reset, and start that routine again. You can also try this with a matchbox underneath your fingers. So you pop that just in there and you can see if you can make the matches move inside the matchbox. Then you know you've got a whole arm movement for vibrato. Once this movement is working well, ideally you would have somebody else put the bow on for you so you can focus on this movement and someone else can make the sound. What we often find is that we get this movement working really nicely and then we try and put the bow in and it goes and it all stiffens up again. So try and get someone else to do the bow for you. I know that can be really difficult right now, especially during lockdown. Like I said, do speak to your teachers about learning vibrato and about their way of teaching it. I'm not saying this is the right way by any means, just wanted to share some ideas and the way that I go about teaching that. And vibrato is going to be super helpful, especially when it comes to just adding colour to the notes. So that can be even in that little fragment of the Warlock where we have the tune all of a sudden. When we have that sort of idea, just on those long notes, just to colour them a little bit, so we don't sound so much like a computer. This is going to be true for the Paganini and also for the Talus. that we want to really create a nice sound. Imagine the appassionato section at letter C in the talus. We don't want that to have no vibrato at all. We want it to be nice wide vibrato as we're combining that with a heavy arm and a slow speed of the bow right down towards the bridge so that we can get a real appassionato sound, like a big opera singer. Please try these skills in isolation first, which is obviously appropriate for right now in the world. Try them in isolation and then try and apply them to the pieces that we're playing. That's really going to help. And for sure, I don't have time to cover this in our Zoom sectional times, so I thought I would use a tutorial for that. You might be wondering, we've still not really talked about the notes yet. Come to the sectionals. We're going to spend loads of time going over the notes really slowly and in a lot of detail so that you feel really comfortable with fingerings and all that sort of thing. And please remember to post any clips of yourself practicing or trying these things out using the hashtag Benedetti Sessions. There you go, I had to check it. Happy practicing, everybody. I'll see you again soon.